Welcome to Speaking Cinema, serious movie Jibber Jabber, a movie podcast coming to you live with claws in our hands and a song in our heart from Hollywood, California. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, at Speaking Cinema. Listen to us Jibber Jabber every single Monday on your favorite podcatcher. We should be there now.
We're there.
You
can find us in space.
A little issue for the PPZ episode. It didn't populate into our RSS feeds, but then now it's there now.
Did it?
Yeah.
How strange.
The numbers don't bode well for that episode, and unless the PPZ fans find us, I don't think it'll ever recover.
We need those 12 views, you know.
Approximately 2 million, but your math, my math, somewhere in the middle. I am your host, grizzled old superhero, Mr. Jibber Jabber. With me today, as always, my albino caregiver, Kevin.
That's me. It's a little bright in here, right? A little bright. The rash isn't that bad yet. So
Okay.
We'll wait.
Let me know when you need me to close this window. This week on the Jibber Jabber, we haven't done a currently in theaters film in quite some time.
It's been a minute.
Gotten away from us.
I don't even remember what the last one was.
It might have been Deadpool.
Oh boy, it might have been Deadpool.
So,
a year ago.
What better way to remedy that than with the highly anticipated chapter of everyone's favorite B-Clawed X-Men, Wolverine. That's right, 2017's Logan.
Yeah.
Starring Hugh Jackman, Patrick Stewart, Boyd Holbrook, Stephen Merchant, and introducing Daphne Keane. Directed by James Mangold, written by James Mangold, Scott Frank, and Michael Green. Produced by TSG Entertainment and 20th Century Fox and Marvel. Distribution by 20th Century Fox.
Very good.
If you're not familiar, in a near future without mutants, Wolverine cares for an ailing Professor X while laying low as a limo driver. But his world is upended when he is put in charge of protecting a young girl who is pursued by malicious forces. What a
description written by me.
What a tasty description. I didn't know this was written by you, and I'm going to say that. Tasty description, and the word malicious.
Yeah.
Delicious.
Delicious and malicious.
After debuting the character in 2000's X-Men, all the way 17 years ago, Kev. Yes. I remember that.
I remember seeing that first movie in theaters.
And I loved it at the time.
As did I.
At the time. As was tradition. This is Hugh Jackman's 10th appearance as Wolverine. He and Patrick Stewart, who plays Professor X, FYI, have confirmed this is their last movie as their respective characters. Interesting announcement. Patrick Stewart he said that, and then now he has come out and said that he would come back for Deadpool.
All right.
Everyone in the Marvel/Fox universe is always saying, "I'll come back." Caveat, right?
Exactly.
Because Hugh Jackman also said that he'd come back if he could be in an Avengers movie.
An Avengers movie. Yep.
Which Jennifer Lawrence also said.
Interesting. She famously, I believe, did not like being Mystique.
Really?
From what I've heard. Because she had First Class, and then she kind of got big, but then she was on contract for 2 more movies, and I think she was...
over it?
Probably over it. Especially, when you win an Oscar, it's like, do I have to sit for 5 hours in a makeup chair putting blue paint on?
When you got that Fox contract, the answer is yes, because she was in Joy, she was in Silver Linings Playbook, she's in X-Men. So, why did you sign that 30-year contract? I will say, and this is the thing that you could say now that we've reached the zenith of superhero movies and content.
Sure.
A lot of people being painted blue and green and other colors nowadays. And I'll say Zoe Saldana, I think, pulled it off the best.
Yeah.
You paint her green, and somehow it just fucking works. You don't question it one iota.
Totally works.
Jennifer Lawrence looks good blue.
Sure.
Looks good blue. It's a good look for her.
But in those later movies, she has a lot of non-blue FaceTime.
Yeah. It's, yeah.
There was probably a little, listen, motherfuckers, in those meetings.
Yeah, I can't be doing this blue shit all day, every day. Unlike most superhero movies, Logan was filmed mostly on location, shot throughout New Mexico and Louisiana. James Mangold wanted a more intimate, personal, quote-unquote, Western feel, as opposed to a comic book movie feel. So he made the movie in that style.
Very cool. I'm excited to see it.
Everything about this movie, Kev, from the trailer which was...
That first trailer hooked me hard.
I'm just saying, that's how you make a trailer.
Yes.
With Johnny Cash's...
Johnny Cash.
Playing a little hurt.
Yep.
And then everything everyone's saying about it, it just, like, it's adding up to, like, I kind of am apprehensive to see it because it should be good. It should be so good. The film is loosely based on the comic Old Man Logan from Marvel, written by Mark Millar. No word if this movie has hillbilly hulks rolling around. I'm not ruling it out, but I don't think it's going to happen.
That'd be an interesting surprise if they showed up. Yeah, there are some backwoods hulks that torment Logan in that comic book. So.
As of the release of this recording, Logan would be in theaters. You know, a little time travel here. It's going to be in theaters when this releases. So
yes.
Get out of the house, bub. See that movie. Schnick. So, Kev. Have you heard of this movie? We both have. We said that already.
Yes, we have.
We're both very excited about this movie.
A lot of posters around the city for this movie.
It's kind of a thing that has always been discussed. An R-rated hard take on Wolverine. Famously, Darren Aronofsky wanted a movie,
yes.
Really hard R Wolverine.
He was going to do the second one, The Wolverine.
Right.
But then...
Mangold took it.
Well, I think negotiations broke down a little bit. And, you know.
And I remember at the time they said that he wanted Wolverine to be killing people, slicing people up, dicing people, which is what we've been promised from that Red Band trailer. You know, in that Red Band trailer, he definitely...
major slicing and dicing.
Yeah, it's, you know, fucking schnicks a dude at point blank range. You know what I mean? Right in the skull. Mm-hmm. So it's gonna be interesting. Let's talk about the X-Men franchise. This is arguably the first legitimate. This paved the modern, because you know you had Superman, you had Batman, right, and they had their movies that were technically franchises, but everyone, they were the exception that proved the rule, right? In Hollywood at the time, in the 70s and the 90s, respectively, it was, you could make Superman. Superman is a movie, Batman is a movie, but comic books are not movies.
Yeah.
That was what was said. And I mean...
and they tried. Oh, they tried.
And if you could time travel, how wrong those men were, right? How wrong they were.
Well, when you look at the movie landscape at that time, you wouldn't blame them, because you had Spawn, which wasn't very good. You had like Tank Girl. You had Phantom,
Dredd. They were
Dredd. Yeah, Judge Dredd.
The Dredd, and I mean Tank Girl was trying. It just wasn't. I don't think as a film, as a language, was not ready for that movie. You know, that wackadoo world. You know what I mean? It's a good attempt at the movie. If you watch it now, it's not a bad movie. It's just, you know, is it Iron Man good? Fuck no.
No.
But it's, you know, it's definitely giving an honest take at that character with the limited resources that they had at the time. It was something like Dredd, and it's like, you know what I mean? Like, what the thing about Dredd, he never takes off his helmet. What does Sylvester Stallone do? Immediately take off that fucking helmet and leaves it off the whole movie.
Yep. And Rob Schneider shows up for some reason. What focus group put Rob Schneider in that movie?
Focus group called cocaine. So the X-Men franchise, it brought the comic book respectability, brought the concept that we could be doing this. I would argue with X-Men X2, it really cemented the idea that we could talk about bigger things with this.
Yes.
So for anyone who forgets the franchise and the order it's in, it went X-Men, X2, X-Men Last Dance, X-Men Origins Wolverine, X-Men First Class, The Wolverine, X-Men Days of Future Past, Deadpool, X-Men Apocalypse, Logan. Soon there's going to be Deadpool 2, and soon there's going to be X-Men something else that's going to come out.
New Mutants, I believe, is in the
New
works.
Mutants, and then
there's a TV show, Legion, on FX, which is in the X-Men universe, so Fox is milking that X-Men team.
They're not giving it up. Kev, have you watched Legion?
I haven't yet.
I want to. I have not, and I want to, because I hear great things about it. And also, Aubrey Plaza's in it, and I love her.
She's fantastic.
She is so talented. She's just like super talented, and I feel like she kind of gets the Michael Cera rep sometimes when people are like, oh, she always plays the same character, and I'm like, I don't think that's true.
It's not true.
And she's great, so shut up.
Yep. And come over to my house. We'll do it on demand sometime.
So what'd you take on the franchise?
It's inconsistent, but it has, the highs are really high in it. I think X2 and X-Men Days of Future Past are your two pinnacles. Mm-hmm. X-Men, you go back and watch it now, and there's some stuff that kind of is like, yeah, this doesn't quite work. But it really sets the template for the modern comic book movie. Mm-hmm. And Hugh Jackman is like everything you could ever want out of Wolverine. You know, because I grew up watching the X-Men Fox cartoon. You know, I read the comic books. I played the video games. Yeah, Wolverine, of course, is your favorite character. And it was always a debate, like, who could even try to bring this to life? And then at that time, Hugh Jackman was kind of an unknown.
Yeah, he was a smaller actor.
Yeah,
he's not the superstar that he is today.
Yeah, an Australian actor who
I remember
could dance a little bit. And it's like, this guy's gonna be Wolverine, huh? But he owes his career to Wolverine, I think.
He does, and you know, he's taken a lot of pride in being the character. You know what I mean? And I respect him for that. And I remember at one point they thought that it was like it's gonna be either Hugh Jackman or Danzig.
Danzig.
Fuck. My only problem with Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, and I literally mean this is my only problem with him as Wolverine,
Sure.
other than the bad movies that he's made with the character, is that he's too tall to be Wolverine. He's like 6 feet tall, and Wolverine's supposed to be like 5'5".
He's supposed
you
to
know
be
what I mean?
Yeah, stocky little dude.
Yeah.
In that X-Men arcade game, yeah, Wolverine's like hunched over, and he looks like Blanca almost.
Yeah. At the end of the day, I'm over it. You know, it's fine.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And everything else he added to the character has been good. You know what I mean? And so he's been a good ambassador for the character. So
Absolutely.
it does it matter? No. But
Yeah, but I have been waiting. You know, Wolverine is the perfect character to have a standalone movie, and they've tried to do it twice. That first one's really bad, and I'm not a huge fan of the second one. And that's the only thing that really gives me pause about this one is that second one, the Wolverine, was directed by James Mangold, and I just didn't think that one was kind of up to snuff.
see, okay, so here's the thing. I disagree with you there. I did like that Wolverine movie, and I will say
things I like about it, but
Sure.
that middle section is flabby.
so but the thing is, what it get in that we could revisit it and determine if that's true or not or whatever, or if that's our take on it. But the thing that movie gets right is that movie is about Wolverine, right?
Yes.
And the thing is, every bad X-Men movie is about bad guy who wants to destroy the world for reasons, and good guys who want to save the world for no reasons, and a big blue beam of light that shines to the sky, right? And it's like, that's Apocalypse. And that's X-Men The Last Stand. And X-Men The Last Stand, I think, betrays... Okay, so the X-Men movie, the mutant stuff is about... You know, it's about being the minority, right? So you could substitute that idea as race, gender, class, sexuality. You know, they utilize a lot of that in the best ones of these. And X-Men The Last Stand really bitches out on that when it's like Rogue takes the cure, and it's like that is so offensive because it's like that's the thing about being persecuted is that you can't take the cure, you cannot stop being the thing that you wanted to be, right? Dave Chappelle said it the best when he was talking on SNL. He's talking about Black Lives Matter, and he's like, the thing about Blue Lives Matter is you could always quit being a cop. He's like, if I could have gotten out of the game being black, I would have gotten out.
Yep.
And that's the thing is that it betrays. It's like you don't get what you're even talking about anymore, right? And so I think while the Wolverine wasn't explicitly about being a mutant in the, you know, like the persecution, whatever, it is about Wolverine struggling with living forever. You know, like this guy wants to take his powers. Should he let him take the power?
Yep.
You know, like.
Yeah, this is someone who actually wants the burden that he goes through all the time, which is living forever.
Right. So at least he tapped into the character of Wolverine and explored that in a very human way, which is what the bad movies don't do.
Yes.
And I remember not liking First Class, thinking it was kind of mediocre, but I kind of want to go back and give it a second chance because I think it does try to course correct the series in a way.
It's definitely... All that stuff is in there in First Class. I really liked that movie when it first came out. Mm-hmm. And because it does it through the lens of the 60s when a lot of these questions were coming up.
Right.
So that gives that extra layer of... Plus, and I think Matthew Vaughn's a really underrated director, too. So...
Right, and then they, off that steam, knocked it out of the park with X-Men Days of Future Past, just to throw it all away with Apocalypse. So, it's... And then fucking Deadpool, right, which is such a fun take on that universe where you have this guy who acknowledges all of these inconsistencies, where he's like, Cyclops like, Professor X wants to talk to you, and he's like, Mangle, he's like, what are they, Picard or it was like I said.
Oh yeah, Picard or James McAvoy.
Yeah, McAvoy. Yeah, is like which one?
Whatever character McAvoy plays.
Yeah, it's just like it's so good. Like that
Yeah.
interplay with it with the character of Deadpool. So I don't know, man. It's what it adds up to is an inconsistent movie. So you don't know you're gonna get a bad one here or a good one here. I think we're gonna get a good one. I'm hopeful.
I'm hoping for it.
I'm hoping for a little Deadpool cameo.
Yep.
Because now we've reached a weird point where we have this unified X-Men universe that's been rebooted once in continuity, though, right? Not just pretend like those other movies didn't happen. We're going to time travel to reboot it. So, but then people say, oh, Deadpool's not going to team up with the X-Men. And it's like, what?
Why not? Why wouldn't he?
Why wouldn't he?
There's no reason they can't.
And it's because they're two different tonally, but it's like you pick an angle and you explore it from that. So if it's an X-Men movie with Deadpool in it, you got this guy who's talking to himself and acting like he's talking to a movie, and people are like, "What are you? He's crazy, right?" And if it's a Deadpool movie, then you just fucking throw away the fucking take the bars off the windows and you just go nuts. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah, to say it's not possible.
Definitely possible.
Get out of here with this. Not possible. What world do we live in right now?
So, what do you think about James Mangold? He's a journeyman director, tackled many genres of his career. I am not super familiar with his filmography.
Yeah, he did his big debut was a movie called Copland with Sylvester Stallone.
Stallone comes up twice in this podcast.
Yeah, indeed he does. But he also did Girl Interrupted, which obviously won Angelina Jolie an Oscar. He did Walk the Line. Then he did the remake of 3:10 to Yuma. That little thriller Identity, I think he did that as well.
Kate and Leopold. So there's the Hugh Jackman connection there. Holy shit.
And then, did the Wolverine and is now doing Logan. So,
he did Night and Day.
Which I heard is actually really entertaining, and I skipped out on it.
You heard wrong.
Okay.
No, it's Tom Cruise in that movie is great because he's like this super spy who is just like happy to be there.
Yep.
So he's getting shot at and he's just joking around. But you could, I guess, what from the story of how that movie went down, it's like when Tom Cruise got brought on, he's like, I want to make the character happy-go-lucky. So it's like, if Tom Cruise brought this when he came on, what did you have before him? And I think that's the problem, is that the underpins don't really work. But, a movie you could watch on FX and probably enjoy.
That's probably it. I'll see if it pops up on HBO.
Yeah, please do. Yeah, indeed. That's appropriate.
Yeah, so I'm definitely familiar with him. I feel like he's never made... His movies are always pretty good, but I think he's never quite made the great one yet. So, he certainly has... He can put together a pretty handsome story. I think Walk the Line would have been 10 times better if it just focused on Johnny Cash and June Carter. Take out all of his family bullshit. Take out all of the origin story. The flashback bullshit. I think that's a 10 times better movie than what it is.
Yeah, I mean, that movie...
But then we wouldn't have gotten Walk Hard, which expertly parodies everything.
That's true. That's true. So if you take the good, you take the bad, then you have the facts of life. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't think him being attached to this, I'm excited for it because I like the Wolverine, right? The rest of his filmography has nothing to do with it, in my opinion. It's just like, let's just focus on, what we're going to do and see what he does. So, Kev, as we wrap up this section of the podcast, any expectations going into this movie? I'm going to say, they've R-rated Wolverine. From what we've seen of the footage from the trailers, I'm hoping for something that is just insanely violent in a good way, right? Not in a
gratuitous,
stupid way.
Because I could see the studios learning all the wrong lessons from Deadpool.
That's an interesting point.
Just not, and I don't think Deadpool's gratuitous, but
you could take the wrong lesson.
You can very much just go over the top and just, every other word's gonna be fuck, and there's gonna be tons of blood and guts and just trying to get off on that as opposed to really tell a story on it. So yeah, that's what I'm hoping they do.
Indeed, and I think with that, let's take it to the cinema.
Here we go.
And we're back.
We're back.
Kev, we're back. We saw...
You've seen it twice already.
I did see it twice. I saw it once.
Because you got friends in high places.
Got friends in high places.
You got to go to an early screening.
Go into an early screening. And then you have friends in high places.
I got that ArcLight Gold membership.
So we got to go again.
Yes.
So I've seen...
We got a special treat.
Yes.
director James Mangold and the producer Hutch, I forget his last name, did a Q&A afterwards.
So
That's great.
we will get to that after our initial take on the movie.
Sure.
It was interesting, and what he said was very interesting, and I was glad that he did the Q&A.
Yeah. So yeah, we kind of we got to see it before the general public, as kind of right before the hype starts really building for it. So, big city living, folks, it has its perks.
I want to say two things before we get into the movie. One, I will see this movie probably a third time with Emily.
I think Christy wants to see it as well, so I will most likely see it again.
Two, the first time I saw it, the audience was just eating it up like ice cream. Just eating it up like every joke they're laughing at, every kill they're groaning. The audience that we saw it with, I feel like, was into it, but more in a respectful, like, I need to look at every frame of this movie.
Sure.
Because when they did the ArcLight introduction, that people were cheering and people had X-Men hats on and fucking all kinds of shit. And then they just watched that movie in stunned silence.
Except you probably heard me going like, "Oh!" And,
Yeah. You and me.
I was in it.
Yeah, no, you and me were loud. Don't get it wrong.
We were Statler and Waldorf in the back, just having a great time.
Oh yeah. No, for sure. So fuck that audience. What I'm trying to say.
All right.
Cav, what'd you think?
I'm pretty floored by this movie.
It's pretty flooring.
It is great. It is fantastic. It's probably the best comic book movie that's ever been made. But it almost seems unfair to call it a comic book movie. It just feels like a great character movie.
I would agree with everything you just said, except for the fact that it is a comic book movie because there's so much comic booky shit in this movie. Like, and again, if you're not familiar with our podcast, this is where we're going to get into deep spoilers. There's a clone of Wolverine that is half robot. There is a clone of Wolverine that is a little girl, or like basically they take his genetic off of him. Like, there's evil organizations. There's powers. There's all the fucking things, right? They're all the fucking comic book shit. But that is all wrapped up in a very human story about accepting love, accepting responsibility, doing the right thing when life is beating you down, and not holding on to your anger in that way, dealing with the bad things that you've done. These are all human stories wrapped in a package that is pure comic book movie, right? And done perfectly. It's a great movie. It's fucking amazing.
I think James Mangold has made his great movie now. And it just happens to be Wolverine's final turn, potentially on screen.
Well, and that's the thing. And so when it ends and he's killed, he dies at the
Wolverine
end.
Dies.
And not like Superman dies, like he's died in the ground, dead.
Buried.
They've been teasing that he's sick and not healing well and his powers are failing him. And then they're like, if you take all of this material, in this comic book shit, right? If you take all the green juice, it'll kill you. If you take a little bit of the green juice, you'll be okay. And of course, Wolverine takes all of the green juice and dies. And the movie ends with him dead in the ground, buried under a pile of rocks.
Yep.
So it's not like, oh, I'm gonna, the power of the sun will rejuvenate me.
It's no bullshit. Batman vs Superman. We see the coffin, but then like the dirt rises and then cut. It's like, no, he is
dead
in the ground. He is dead.
DED, dead.
Very much.
So
he's a dead now.
And I think it's like what sucks is that it's such a good movie that you're like, we should make another one of these, right? And we'll get to how we could finagle that if we're gonna finagle it in a minute. But I kind of like that they went out. Seinfeld was right, man. Go out when you're on top, because we'll always, if this is truly the last ride.
And tell you the truth, I hope it is.
And I agree with you. I also hope it is, because it leaves us appreciating it, appreciating this. You don't now the franchise. I just remember the good shit. You know what I mean? Two,
like
First Class.
X-Men Origins seems like it was 45 years ago.
Indeed, and that feels good. You know what I mean?
It does. It's everything I love about this character, just in one great epic story, but still a very human story.
Well, and that's the thing. So in the synopsis that you wrote for this, based off your research, you said, and I quote, "But his world is upended when he's put in charge of whatever," and that's the key thing. It's about his world. And yes, it's a comic book movie. And yes, if this evil corporation gets these kids back, they'll turn them into super soldiers or kill them or do whatever nefarious thing that will have global consequences, right? But here and now, the problem in front of us is about Wolverine. And can he do the right thing? And is he capable of it? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And there's times in this movie where when X-24, his clone, comes, stabs Charles Xavier and grabs the girl, he leaves the girl and goes after Charles, right? Because he's, it's like, we as audience have been shown that Charles is dead. Like, he's going to die.
Yep.
But Wolverine doesn't know that. But the way it's cut together, it's like, no, go after the girl. And he leaves her and he goes after Charles. You know what I mean?
Well, and we've opened the movie with him. He's been caring for him for X number of years. Long time. So obviously Charles is the whole reason he's not just a drifter somewhere. It's Charles brought him in to the X-Men school. And so of course he's going to go for him first. But yeah, it's the way that scene is put together. Again, we already know Charles is lost.
Right.
So, but that's another hump that Wolverine has to get over, is you're in this world alone now. You don't have Charles there to help you out, who's always been there for him.
And, another good thing about this movie is it's subtly back to the story of mutants being about the lower class, right? However you want to define that. And in this movie, they don't overtly make any proclamations about how, we'll rise up and blah, blah, blah. But the franchise works best this way when they wiped out mutants through, what do you call it? Like inoculation through food products, you know what I mean? And none of that is overly explained, which is great. And then they're creating mutants and they're subhuman. They're slaves. We're going to birth these people, and we don't think they're not people, they're our property. And it's like, they're humans, but because they're mutants, they're not humans, they're slaves. Yep. And I think that is not expounded on in any great conversation, but is a part of the movie.
Yes.
And that's so great. It's so fucking, it's back to telling the correct version of this story. And I say correct version of the story in the sense that this has dramatic stakes and is interesting. The interesting version of the story. Not the part of the story where it's like, we gotta defeat this, the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse named after Apocalypse. Like, what? Yep. That's like a bad pun. Mm-hmm. Stop it.
Yep. Yeah, it's, everything is driven by Wolverine and what he needs to do to be at peace with himself and the world around him. Mm-hmm. And I think, him dying at the end is secretly a happy ending.
I think so too.
Because his last words are, he says, "Oh, so that's what that feels like." But I think you can kind of take it 2 different ways. I took it initially as, "Oh, this is what pain and dying feels like, and it feels good," like this is, I shouldn't say pain, it's the releasing of pain, and just being able to fade away. But then James Mangold at our Q&A talked about, I think this is how you took the line, was, yes, this is what love feels like, because he's holding X-23's hand. And
I also would argue that he knows what death is, because he's been killed and come back to life so many times in this franchise, you know what I mean? That, but regardless, yeah, I think it's that he finally learns what it's like to accept people into your life and do, and love this girl and do the right thing.
Yep. That Q&A we had with James Mangold was fantastic, though. I have a lot more respect for him as a filmmaker, and I think might even go revisit some of his other movies and see where he applies that. He had a great line.
Go ahead.
He said, they talked about, they made this movie for $127 million, which...
Really? Wow.
That's what IMDb said on the budget. So, for what's essentially a Western, yeah, that's a big budget Western. But it's a pretty small budget comic book movie when Batman vs. Superman is $250 million, and, all these other ones push $200 million. But he talked about... He said it's a lot cheaper filming people feeling than filming cities falling. Uh-huh. And I thought that was a great line and really put you in the idea of like, okay, they were making this for all the right reasons.
And to give credit where credit's due, there's no disaster porn in this. There's no buildings falling over for the sake of destruction. Whenever anything bad happens, it happens to characters that you love and care about, right? It's like, oh no, there's actual stakes to it. It's not just disaster for the sake of disaster. We could have flipped a car. We could have, knocked over a casino. Sure. But what would it have mattered? Yep. You know what I mean? And that's the thing. He did say some weird shit that on that Q&A,
he put the whole comic book industry on blast in that Q&A.
He did, in a way that I found to be kind of bizarre, because he was saying, he was definitely taking shots at Marvel and the Avengers, where he's like, I hate that movies are set up for other movies, and I hate that once they have the thing that they're setting up, there's no character development there, and it's just, the guy...
When he just broke down the hard math of it, it was interesting, though. He's like, if you have X minutes of action and X number of characters, then each character gets, 12 minutes of time. Screen time to just be characters. Another character that, now you're dividing it, now they got 6 minutes. And he said, that's less time than a Roadrunner cartoon.
Right. Which I would agree with based on Batman vs. Superman, which I would disagree with based off of Captain America Civil War. Because, while does Ant-Man get an arc in that movie? No, but they don't pretend like that he's a main character. Everyone is a supporting character, and the two main characters are Iron Man and Captain America, and they have their arcs and they have their struggles, and the movies are about them, and they dominate the movie, right?
Yep.
Now, when we get to Avengers,
2, I would say, I would put that one on blast for having too many characters and not enough time to trying to make everybody a main character.
But at that point, have you earned the spectacle because you've made everyone their individual movie, and now you're paying it off?
True.
And I would argue that the audience feels that way at this point. So, listen, that's not his bag. That's not what he wants to make. That's totally fine. But he was also shitting on the concept of franchises, which is, and he said that Fox let him do whatever he wanted, right? They're like, after Apocalypse, they realized that they needed a fresh take on this, and he says that and we'll believe him because he said it, that they were very open to them exploring the franchise, which is fine, but he kind of seemed to be really shitty on the whole concept of the X-Men universe, which is bizarre because this is the third sequel of the spin-off series off the main franchise, right? So in terms of comic bookery, it's pretty comic bookery and very in tune with what we're doing. You know what I mean?
But then they still, Hugh Jackman still had to take a pay cut to get this thing made.
Totally.
The confidence isn't quite there just yet.
But my problem with it was that he was just like, franchises are dumb, but it's like, but you're doing the franchise, and people are talking about how the continuity doesn't really make sense. I feel like it kind of does.
I think they've done a pretty good job retconning the bad ones into parlaying it into good ones.
Right.
Because Days of Future Past just eliminates Last Stand,
Yeah.
From the whole timeline.
Well, the thing, Days of Future Past eliminates all of the beginning movies, right? So you can assume that something like them may or may not have happened. But basically, since the reboot, right, we went from Days of Future Past, and then we went into Apocalypse, Deadpool, the Wolverine, and Logan.
Yep.
So that timeline kind of adds up. The Wolverine's not even in this timeline. So the current timeline only has a couple of movies in it. So I feel like it all kind of works out.
But I really do feel like, and I think what James Mangold was talking about, I don't know if it's franchises he doesn't like so much. It's the lack of emotion and telling the story in front of you and effort to do that he was really railing against. Which I, on this very podcast, have said too. He said, human emotion is sometimes treated as a joke, and I think that's wrong in film. The groundwork of film is human emotion.
Hey man, their mother's names were Martha.
Why'd you say that name? Why'd you say that name?
I agree. And I think everything that we're talking about, I think that's why this movie's good. The crux of it is the human emotion. The crux of it is the human experience.
And that's why I think,
as explored through a clawed man.
I think you could see no other X-Men movie and come into this movie.
Absolutely.
I think it totally works as just, if you didn't even know what the X-Men was, it's kind of this bizarre Western of a guy with claws and his psychic friend that he has. And you can come into it cold, and it still works.
Also, I will say, we alluded to the violence, and I think it's a violent world, and the movie purports a violent world. It's very Western in that way, right?
Yes.
And did Fox learn the wrong lesson from Deadpool? As of this movie, no. They learned the right answer from Deadpool, right? Well, Deadpool was extremely violent and silly. This is extremely violent and serious.
Yes.
Appropriately so for the story that they're telling. And I feel like they earn it. The juxtaposition between the relationships between these three characters and the insane violence and the themes of, because the theme is, he's telling her, like, you're gonna have to deal with the things that you're doing right now, and she's like, I kill bad people, and he's like, it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Like, eventually it catches up to you. And so that justifies what we're doing here, right? Because is he slicing people's heads off? Totally.
Yep.
And is it awesome? Yes. But you see that he's paying a price for it.
Exactly. We never feel like it's just glorified killing either.
Mm-hmm.
It's nasty, it's brutal. Lots of people get stabbed in the face in very different ways. Through the chin, through the eye, sliced apart, hands taken off, limbs taken off.
But as violent as it is, it does hold back. Like, because there could have been. There could have been, like, he could have cut their heads, like, in the middle, and it splits into two pieces, or down the middle, and whatever. Like, he has three. One thing that actually kind of bugged me, and I think it bugged me the more the second time I saw it, is he has three claws, but when he cuts someone, they act like it's one claw. Yeah. So it's like, when he cuts a guy's arm off, there should be the big piece of the arm, and then two little slices.
Sure.
And then that way the tracker guy could have been like, well, I know it was you because...
Yeah.
There's three slices.
True. But I mean, they do, like, when you stab somebody in the head, it pops out three on the other
Yeah,
end,
sure,
so
sure, yeah.
It has those things.
But that criticism is only when he's cutting things off.
Sure.
To clarify. I will also say, the villains are great. And this is where a lot of comic book movies really... Even the Marvel movies, they have very forgettable villains.
That's been Marvel's problem from the beginning,
right.
Is forgettable villains. About the only good one they have is Loki.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it.
Right. So. Because who was the bad guy in Guardians of the Galaxy? I don't remember either.
Yeah.
Who was the bad guy in Thor: The Dark World?
Some elf.
A dark elf?
Yep.
I don't know his name.
He was pissed.
Yeah. So there's X-24. Totally great, right? Because it's about... What a better way to personify... This is why I love the comic book idiocy of this. What a better way than fighting with your own emotions when you're literally fighting your own emotions.
Yep. Or X-24 being the representation of what he could have become, and that's just this mindless killing machine that does what he's told.
Right. The Weapon X program to its potential. And then there's Xander Rice, who is the evil doctor, and then Donald Pierce, which is the robot hand guy. Yep. And they're really interesting villains that have, like, Donald is a funny guy. He's funny, and he's kind of like an internet fanboy in a way, but then he does terrible things, and you hate him.
He wouldn't be out of place as, like, the bad sheriff in a Western.
Right.
Like, he would totally just, boop, he'd fit right in there.
And he's the personification of Ice Teeth. It's not personal, it's just business.
Yep.
And then Xander Rice, the same thing too, where, he's talking to the bald guy, and he's like, yeah, the Reavers are savages. I'm with you. You know what I mean? But help me out here. And then betrays that trust, and then later he comes back, and it's like, you see that this guy is a guy who could be reasonable when he wants to be, and is not reasonable when it suits him. You know what I mean? And something very human about that villainy in this movie, right? Where it's like, we're not just these fanged evil dudes. It's like they'll make jokes, they'll be charming at times, but they're fucking monsters.
Exactly.
Does anything not work with this movie, Kev?
I want to see it again. I feel like I don't know if it's issues with the pacing, but I think it's just I wasn't quite in the group ready for what it was doing, so I want to see it again. It's kind of like a Quentin Tarantino movie, where the pacing is definitely on its own wavelength, and we're just kind of not conditioned for it. Mm-hmm. And I just want to see it again to see, like, does this part feel slow the second time, or do I really, now that I really understand what kind of movie they were making, it's going to work? I thought there were maybe a couple parts that dragged a little bit, but nothing that really hurt it. I don't think so.
Yeah, I'd say the scene with the family is portrayed very, like, wholesomely and fun, and they're having a fun with Charles being his father, but then as the audience member, that this is going to go the worst way.
Exactly.
Your only question is how bad will it go?
Yep.
You know what I mean? And so I'm like, both time I watch this, I'm like, does the movie understand that we're not here for this? But I think it does, and that's why it's so sugary sweet the way that they're doing it, and just to fuck you. But you know you're getting fucked. You're like, no, don't take it away.
Yeah. But yeah, so I mean, I definitely want to see it again, but I want to see if I feel the same way in those parts. So.
And I would say that one of the things I really liked about this movie is that it is a simple story about the exploration of a man who hates himself and fears love. And there's allusions to bigger things. And I don't want to say those things don't matter because the movie wouldn't be as good without them. Right? So they allude to the virus that took out the mutants. They allude to the comic books that came up with the mutants. All of the past shit that they allude to, you know, it is not important to this story because if it was, they would talk about it in greater detail.
Sure.
But there is a richness to the fact that it exists.
Mm-hmm. And it's hinted at and explored in the best kind of weaving just right into the main plot. It's not, we don't have this long, you know, flashback scene
Right.
that has to tell us the whole thing.
Right.
This movie really does trust us to put the pieces together. And again, I think even if you're not an X-Men fan, you can get the gist of it just with the information that they give you in this movie.
That all being said, what do you think happened to Professor X in Westchester?
Probably, you know, we see the scene at the Harrah's Casino in Oklahoma where his mind freaks out and he could have killed everybody. Probably what happened. I bet a lot of people died. And it was his fault. It was probably the first symptom of his brain failing him, which it never has before. Which that's a really interesting take on that character. You know, his power was always his superhuman brain and able to, you know, psychically control so many things. What happens when he's not in control of his brain anymore? He has Alzheimer's or he has
Some sort of degenerative. Yeah.
That's a really bold take on that character. It's very, very interesting.
What did you... I agree. And what did you think about the comic books being integrated in the story?
I was thrown for a loop at first. But then, because, you know, when it showed up, I thought it was just going to be kind of a kitschy reference. And that maybe wasn't going to get explored again.
I was worried about that too.
But then the way they really do it So it was based on... And then I read afterwards that those comics were written for the actual movie. They aren't actual, like...
Oh, really?
X-Men comics.
Interesting.
Which, you know, I thought, of course they would pull this and kind of throw it in there. But those are ones just created for that movie. For this movie. And the way they do it in terms of... That's how people remember their heroes. Or how heroes are made. They read about all the great things they did. And... That's why her mom believed, X-23's mom believed in Wolverine and wanted him to help because that's the pedestal they put him on.
The legend.
Whether he wants it or not, that's what people think of him.
Right.
You know?
And yeah, exactly. It's playing into the legend of the character, which is how we as the audience feel about him.
Yeah.
And he was reminding us, you know, he tells her at one point, he's like, I am fucked up and I cannot help you. And it's just like... Also, yeah, and it's just a great reveal. Also, I got kind of confused because I thought there'd be a time travel element where someone had gone to the past to make sure that this moment happened.
Oh, okay.
Which, well, not too. We could still do in time travel storytelling. We could do in the sequel, but I thought that's what they were gonna do. But
I'm glad they didn't. So, and yeah, I thought it was a nice way to. You know, they show the Eden in the comic books, but then it's kind of just this shed that these kids run, you know. But to them, that is Eden. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
You make your own Eden at that point.
There's lots of good reveals in this movie.
Yes.
Like, you reveal the kid, and then you reveal... like
she's got claws. You reveal she's badass.
Yeah, you reveal she's a badass. You reveal that the Eden is taken from the comic book. Then you reveal much later that is just happens to be true. You know what I mean? You reveal the reveal of Charles is great. The reveal that she could talk is great, but she talks Spanish. You know what I mean? Although I did feel like that was a very big inconsistency where she speaks with a Hispanic accent and she's better at Spanish than she is at English. Yeah. But all of her friends speak perfect English and no Spanish.
Sure. Yeah. You can make it work.
Although when the kid in the end has the Wolverine toy.
Yep. I was like, man, that would have been me, man, because I loved Wolverine.
Yeah.
I had a Wolverine toy with claws.
Of course you did. And I don't know, man. It's a movie about a violent world and the ability to deal with the terrible things you've done. And the violence works. I don't know. I feel like it is just a perfect execution of the premise.
And I do think their whole aesthetic of going on location, that just adds a whole nother level to it. Just makes it feel a lot more grounded, and it's well shot. It's well edited. The lighting's great. The acting is phenomenal across the board, especially from Hugh Jackman.
Mm-hmm.
So you can tell this is a guy who's been in this character for 10 years.
Yeah.
Over 10 years. 17 years, over 10 appearances. And really understands it and really loves it and really isn't afraid of it to do, like, anything with it.
But what do you... Okay, so now that we've kind of talked about the movie... In terms of the bigger franchise, do you think this is weird because now if they make another X-Men movie or another Deadpool movie, we know where this universe goes to?
Yeah. It's kind of weird.
Right? We know that eventually, this is what happens to Logan, and by 2029,
he's going to be dead.
Mutants are all wiped out, and this is the landscape that we live in. Is that a weird decision franchise-wise?
I just hope they don't try to retcon it or make a different timeline in any way, because I don't want this one to be kind of an aberration. I kind of want it to go here.
Yes, but...
And
I don't want them to overwrite this now.
And, it's funny. We obviously saw this early. I keep seeing these articles like, oh, Hugh Jackman, is this the last time? Or is Professor X, is this the last time? I'm like, they die.
Well, but technically we got
in the future, right. So there's room to play in there.
We got until 2029 to figure this out.
Figure it out. So.
In the end, I think we both like this movie and it definitely works.
If it's not on my top 10 at the end of the year, then it's going to be a great year.
A lot of heavies coming out at the beginning of this year.
Yeah,
a lot of heavies.
I think people realize that you can have those heavier movies out. It doesn't have to be a dumping ground.
Yeah.
Earlier in the year. And Deadpool came out in February last year. Mm-hmm. This is in March.
Get Out came out. And the Wolverine, two heavy hitters. Table 19, heavy hitter. So here's the thing. Normally, this is the point in the podcast where we talk about our sequel/fan theory pitch. So here's mine. Deadpool, because Deadpool said that he's going to team up with Cable.
Yep.
So... Deadpool and Cable fight throughout time in Deadpool 2. Fighting through time. He comes back to the moment right after they buried him, and he's like, shit. You know what I mean?
Could work.
I think they could... I don't know. I think you can... I think Deadpool through time travel could reboot the whole universe again if they ever needed to, right? Or he fucks it up and they have to start over again, and so you get that's how you get a different person playing Hugh Jackman. Mm-hmm. Or playing Wolverine, not Hugh Jackman. And I don't want to, listen, I love Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, but I don't want to do this thing that they always do with the Joker, where every time someone new plays a Joker, we talk about how this is the end of the character, and it's blasphemy and whatever, and it's always fucking fine. You know what I mean? It's fine.
There's just those, in movies and literature and all kinds of things, there's just those legacy characters that stay around because you can always kind of put an interesting spin on them. Mm-hmm. King Kong, Godzilla, the Joker, Dracula, Frankenstein, Batman. You can always... They're just such rich, interesting characters that you can put a modern... Whatever kind of level we're going at, you can put that kind of take on it. And maybe Wolverine, he can join that. Maybe we can have a different Wolverine every few years. I don't know if I want one.
Yeah, that's it. I don't know if
I'd rather see X-23 and see what Daphne King's up to, because she turns in a hell of a performance.
Right.
And, I'd like to see that little group of mutants, age them up to teenagers a little bit, and have them have their own little...
Right, New Mutants, right there.
Yep.
Boom.
That's New Mutants.
So, but I did wish Deadpool came in. I do wish that.
He wouldn't have fit in with the tone of this movie.
Yeah, just like, And
it would have been... And then I think you lose that element of someone could come in not seeing any X-Men movies It's who the hell is this red guy that talks to the camera?
Sure. Well, yeah.
I just
You'd have to do it in a
he'd
way.
be shoehorned in, and I just don't think that would have really killed a lot of the vibe of what Logan is trying to do. My opinion.
Potentially. It doesn't... Listen, at the end of the day, they left us wanting more. Seinfeld was right, and you know, you get this great ending, and this desire to want more, and you'll always appreciate it. So in the end, it all works out.
Yep.
It's fine.
It does.
And it's great. And what a fantastic fucking movie. And that's it for me. I mean...
That's really it for me. Yeah, I want to see the continuing adventures of X-23 and see what this girl does. And what a great send-off to a great character.
Oh, okay. I got another pitch for you before we wrap this up. So there's a in the comic book there's a comic book called Deadpool Versus. So Deadpool, it's long and convoluted, but basically he is continuity becomes his enemy. He's like, you know, it's too like life is too much, and so he's attacking continuity in a very. So he starts jumping between the X-Men universes and then jumping into different universes, like things that have reached public domain. Okay. So it's like, you know, so he like goes into what's that Christmas thing with the three ghosts?
Oh, Christmas Carol.
Yeah, so he goes into there and he fucks up everybody and he's just combining him. So then it becomes this multi-dimensional thing. So it's there's Deadpool, and then there's like She-Pool, who's from another universe over, and then there's like Panda-Pool.
She-Pool.
Or Lady name. Deadpool, whatever you want to call it.
She-Pool's dead. That's just a funny name.
Yeah. So. And then there's Panda-Pool, Wolverine-Pool, Robot Deadpool. You know, there's like a million different Deadpools, and they're all fighting each other, you know? So there's like different squads. The Samurai Deadpool. Uh-huh. So I want Deadpool's third sequel to be Deadpool versus Deadpool.
Dawn of Deadpool.
Yeah. I don't know.
It could totally work.
I don't know if the world's ready for it, but that's what it should be.
We'll see what Deadpool 2 has got up its sleeve, and then we could go that wacky with it.
I think we should. That's it for us. This episode written by Kev, music by Jeff Russell. I'm Mr. Jibber Jabber. That's Kev. You listen to our words long written down when the man comes around.